Is Russia deploying ballistic missiles to the Poland border? And is the U.S. rallying to support Belarus? Just why are U.S. officers cheering for our adversaries' military exercises? I'm Paul, U.S. Army combat veteran. Hit subscribe. Let's talk about this. So this has been a weird series of stories, but what I really wanted to mention, the first sort of piece of information I want you guys to have is that Russia is deploying its Iskander ballistic missiles. These are conventional ballistic missiles near the Polish border. You can see they are short-range ballistic missiles very frequently used in Ukraine to target cities, but occasionally to other key infrastructure. And this is something that is really difficult for Patriot missile batteries and other air defenses to shoot down. They are ballistic missiles. They're very high speed. And this is actually deployed in Kaliningrad, right near the border with Poland. And this is reportedly due to a emergency, we'll call it, exercise for NATO countries in the region. You can see here's kind of the area that the Iskander can hit, right? It includes all the Baltics, Estonia, Latvia, Lithuania, as well as most of Poland and parts of the Czech Republic and Slovakia. But again, Poland's launched its Iron Defender 25 military exercises, 30,000 troops, including 9,000 soldiers from the Polish 18th Mech Division alongside other NATO allies. But the drill is a strategic response to the Russian-Belarusian Zapad 2025 exercises. And I think, again, this has extra stakes because, as we talked about, 15 Russian drones violated Polish airspace in the most brazen attack on NATO territory since its founding. And I want you guys to understand that while right now, with the benefit of hindsight, we say, hey, those were unarmed drones. They didn't really have like deliberate targets per se. But remember, we only find that out after the fact. You would only find out those drones were armed when it was too late. And so this was deliberate provocation and truly an attack by Putin. Let's not mince words here, right? These were military one-way drones. They were not going to return. And even though they crashed largely into farm fields, they still required the closing of airports. And again, in some cases, appeared to be moving towards civilian airports. So, it's a little bit like if someone marches onto your house with, their hand in their waist like this, what are you going to assume that they're doing, right? You're not going to find out whether that's a Nerf gun or a real gun until it's too late. So, you would describe that as at least a strong threat, if not, and probably you would use words like trespassing, threatening, harassment, right? Crimes. And that's the international version of what Russia has done to Poland here. Now, this is why, given that context, it is extra disgusting to see American officers visiting Belarus. You know that Belarus, while not a participant in the Ukraine conflict, Belarus has been a massive, massive enabler, essentially a puppet state for the Russian government, right? Lukashenko really is very, very close to Russia and is seen in some ways as kind of a Russian reputation laundering. In fact, you may notice that in international sporting competitions, Belarusian athletes are sanctioned to the same strength as Russian athletes because they are seen as basically proxies of the Russian government. And so the fact that these exercises, which again is between the Russian and Belarusian military, had senior U.S. officers attend is absolutely insane. Now, there are representatives from 23 other countries, but only 2 of them are NATO countries, Turkey and Hungary. Notably, both of them are dominated by strongmen, right? Orban in Hungary and Erdogan in Turkey. So these are NATO countries, but they are not democracies in any kind of meaningful sense. So the USA joins these 2 member states in sending representatives. 2 U.S. officers accepted the invitation, were sent there. Right now, reportedly, this is in response to a Trump representative who negotiated the release of 52 prisoners from Belarusian jail, like journalists and political opponents. U.S. granted some sanctions relief to Belarus's national airline, allowing it to buy components for Boeing aircraft that it owns. But Trump said he wants to reopen the U.S. Embassy in Belarus in the near future, normalize ties, and revive the trade relationship. But again, this is a difficult to stomach because Belarus is a absolute proxy. And if you cannot sanction Russia and normalize trade with Belarus, because Belarus will just become a pipeline through which Russian goods and services get laundered and put into the global market. So again, there is no sanctioning Russia without sanctioning Belarus. But of course, Trump knows this and doesn't care because he sent Lukashenko a friendly hand-signed letter via his representative. So again, the takeaway here is that for the President Trump, it seems like perhaps the associations with Putin are becoming problematic for him, right? Even he is kissing Putin's ass a little too hard for it to be comfortable. But Lukashenko is someone whose reputation is at least distant enough from Trump that he can get away with cozying up to him. I want to show you guys here. You might notice these two flower-looking symbols represent that these guys are two lieutenant colonels. These are senior level officers, not quite flag grade, but still these are guys with nearly 20 plus years of service. And you can see here is, to give you an idea of how close the Belarusian and Russian military are, this is a Belarusian general wearing, Russian digital camo, Flora EMR. So again, just really worth noting that this is really unprecedented. I want you guys to understand how rare this is. Again, the only NATO countries attending this event are countries with extreme autocracy. And no democracy is attending these because, again, Russia, an authoritarian state, has invaded a democratic country, one that had no military designs on it. So what I think, though, is even more troubling is that Russia itself has actually shifted its stance. Because for a while, it said we have no fight with NATO. But now, Russia's saying, yeah, actually, guys, yeah, we are at war with NATO. We were not joking. So, right, Russia Russian officials, including the unhinged Dmitry Medvedev, the current Security Council deputy chairman, said on Monday that if there were a no-fly zone over Ukraine, it would be tantamount to war, which is funny because, again, Kremlin, part of the Kremlin's objectives in the war, he says it's only in the east. So why is it so important that they continue to be able to launch large-scale drone incursions over Ukrainian airspace? And Peskov said, you know what, guys, actually, this is the Kremlin's official spokesman, right, who speaks on behalf of the Kremlin itself. He said that NATO and Russia are in a de facto state of war, right? And this is pretty troubling because, again, 19 Russian drones violated Polish airspace last week, and another incident happened in Romania. So, I don't know. At some point, you have to really just confront reality, where you're talking about the official spokesman from the Kremlin says we are at war. They do a bunch of warlike things, right? They literally throw drones at NATO countries. And the only person who seems unable to articulate this problem is the president of the United States, who still maintains that, Russia is just a friendly friend that we haven't made yet, that it was an accident, a boo-boo. Again, I mean, the level of naivete to say, guys, maybe these Russian drone violations were a boo-boo. And then the literal communications director of the Kremlin goes, no, we're at war with you, NATO. We're at war. At some point, you have to sit there and go, hey, we should probably try to win. Again, it's hard to explain it. It's almost like getting attacked by someone and they're trying to kill you. You're in a fight for your life, and you still have this naive belief that you're like, well, let's talk about it. Like as they're trying to beat you to death with a rock or something, you're like, no, we can still talk about it. We're not in a fight. It's like, no, dude, I'm hitting you. So this level of naivete, again, coming from the West, must look absolutely absurd. Absolutely absurd to Russia. Especially given that, again, imagine U.S. troops going to watch Soviet military exercises. We would be furious. That president would be impeached for sending American troops to endorse Soviet military practices. And yet somehow we just do it in Belarus and we don't even bat an eye. It's more evidence that the Europeans are operating with a level of naivete that is almost comical, almost absurd to an unbelievable degree, that the White House is either actively supporting Russian efforts or simply so inept, so clueless, so stupid that they are unable to even accept plain facts stated by the Russians themselves. But in either case, it is good news for Russia and bad news for the democracies and free peoples of the world. Guys, we are helping out the units in Ukraine who are holding the line against Russian aggression. In Kramatorsk, units like Azov, the Liut Brigade, are fighting tooth and nail against Russian advances, and in places, they're even driving the Russians back. So we're going to help them out. They are holding the fortress city of Kramatorsk, place that I've personally been to, and best of all, an anonymous donor is matching 100%. Every dollar you give will be matched by an anonymous donor. So help them out. The link to the fundraiser is in the description. It's a US 501c3, and donors can get hooked up with different rewards at different tiers, including a patch from the Kramatorsk Patrol Police, which is kind of sick, patch from the guys at the Corvus of the unit of the 93rd Brigade. These are one of the best drone units in the entire Ukrainian military, guys I have also personally met. So check it out and help them out. Plus, a huge thank you to the Colonel tier members of Combat Vet News, guys like AL90, James Porsche, Steve Moran, Doug Beck, Alex Williams, Henry Roussier, as well as all of our Lieutenant tier members. Couldn't do it without you guys. Thank you so much, and I'll see you in the next one. Cheers.